This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
My mother, Aurelia Jadrny, was a clerk at the food distribution center at the city hall. She was in her early 20s and a war widow. Her husband had gotten killed just 8 months after their wedding, and my mother didn't even find out about his death until 6 months later. Working at her desk one morning, she noticed my father passing on the street. An older guy, in his late 30s, but tall and good-looking, and wearing the uniform of the Gendarmerie, the rural police. Now she was crazy about men in uniform, and every day after that she would watch for him. She figured out when his shift was, so she would be sure to be on her desk. They were flirting and talking through the open window, and she would give him some food from whatever was at hand. Now my father's name was Gustav Schwarzenegger. They got married late in 1945. He was 38 and she was 23. My father was assigned to Thal and put in charge of a 4-man post responsible for the village and nearby countryside. Now his salary barely enough to live on, but with the job came a place to live, the old forester's lodge, also known as the Forsthaus. The forest ranger, or Forstmeister, lived always on the ground level, and the inspector and his family always occupied the top. My boyhood home was a very simple stone and brick building, well proportioned, with thick walls and little windows to keep out the alpine winters. We had 2 bedrooms. Each was equipped with coal ovens for heat, and of course the kitchen where we ate and where we did our homework and washed ourselves and played games, where we literally did everything. That kitchen was heated by my mother's stove. There was no plumbing, no shower, no flushing toilet, just a kind of chamber pot or a splashing toilet. The reason why we call it that is because every time we went to poo, a few seconds later you would hear a big splash at the bottom. The nearest well was almost a quarter mile away, and even when it was raining hard or snowing, one of us had to go and get that water. So we would use as little water as we could. We would heat it, and we would fill the wash basin and give ourselves a sponge or cloth bath. I remember my mother always would wash herself first with the clean water, nice and warm water. Next, my father would wash himself, and then Meinert and I would have our turn. And it didn't matter if we had, of course, slightly darker water by now, as long as we could avoid a trip to the well and schlep up that water. Now we had wooden furniture, very basic, and a few electric lamps. My father liked, of course, pictures and antiques, but when we were growing up, these were luxuries that he could not afford. Now music and cats brought liveliness to our house. We had 7 cats at one time. And my mother played the zither, and she sang songs and lullabies. But it was my father who was the real musician in the house. He would play all of the wind and reed instruments, like the trumpets, saxophones, clarinets, and the list would go on and on and on. He also wrote music, and he was the conductor of the region's Gendarmerie band. If a police officer, for instance, would die anywhere in our state, the band would then play at that funeral, and my father would be conducting the music. And often on Sundays in the summer, we would go to the concert in the park, where he would conduct the band and sometimes actually play himself. Most of our relatives on his side were very musical, but their talent, sadly to say, never made it to Meinhard or me. Now I'm not sure why we had cats instead of dogs. Maybe because my mother loved them, and they cost nothing because they caught their own food. But we always had lots of cats, running in and out and curling up here and there, bringing down half-dead mice from the attic to show off what great hunters they were. And my mother would always stroke them and would compliment them, "Oh, good cat." Everyone, of course, had their own cat, curling up in their bed at night. That was kind of the tradition. We just loved it. But never too much.